Hello, hello.
Good
We're,
evening.
we're live. Oh,
We are live. Hey, Courtney.
Courtney's in the chat again. There
Courtney's
she
already in
is.
here. Our Get Haunted family, they're already there.
Yep. So tonight we have Ursula Bielski. I hope I'm saying that correctly. She'll tell me when she gets on the screen if I'm wrong. If you're in Chicago, Midwest, anything in the paranormal, any interest, you know who she is. She's an author. She's a parapsychologist, historian, podcast host. She does everything. She's hosted GhostCon in Chicago. And yeah, this woman does everything, I feel like. Anything related to Chicago hauntings, you know her. So let's bring her on. There we are.
Hey! So awesome.
I always love having fun, upbeat guests.
I know, right? And that's what she is. She's so upbeat and so happy.
It takes the pressure away from us a little bit.
Just wait till you meet her in person, Ross. Like, her energy is just amazing.
Hey, some of the people I've met over the time
comes from, honestly. Because I need that shirt, Jenny.
Tired as a mother.
I really need that shirt.
Tired as a mother. That is me today. Tired as a mother. I made my daughter clean her room, and I sat on her bed and told her what to do. But somehow I still ended up cleaning it. Like, but for people who don't know who you are, tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, I have been, it's weird. I was just thinking about this yesterday. I've been doing paranormal investigations since 1988. I started when I was in, as an undergrad at Benedictine University. It was weird. I had I was always interested in the paranormal, but I had a friend in school that was a psychology major, and he was doing, the school was letting him pretty much make his own major. He was doing all of his work in parapsychology. Mm-hmm. So he let me help him with a lot of his projects and field work. So that's how I learned, started to learn about paranormal research. And so that was 1988. And when we graduated, we went, our separate ways, and I kept doing investigation and research by myself. And I started writing, and my first book came out in 1997. And I'm finishing 3 books now, and those will be my 13th, 14th, and 15th books. And then my husband and I ran the Chicago Hauntings Ghost Tours for 20 years, which we handed off to American Ghost Walks about 3 years ago now. They're still going strong. And I'm still writing and still investigating. And I've got my podcast on YouTube, World of Supernatural. So just kind of still lecturing and teaching at Harper College and writing and doing all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All the stuff.
We talked about a little about your books. Here are 2 more Chicago haunts. There's something under the bed. You have these also. You have The Haunted Gary, Graveyards of Chicago, The Haunting of Juliet Prison, which is one of my favorite ones. It's thick, but it's so good. It goes in so much detail. I love it.
Love that place. Love it.
Yes. So now we're talking about Juliet Prison. Let's dive into the history of Juliet just a little bit.
Yeah, Joliet Prison. We contracted with Joliet Prison when we were running the ghost tours to Joliet had just started doing tours. The prison closed a number of years ago, but they started the Joliet Prison, or the Joliet Historical Museum, leased the prison from the state of Illinois, and they started doing tours there in the spring of 2018. And then by the late summer, they wanted to start doing ghost tours there and make the place like, Alcatraz or Eastern State or Mansfield, big operation, where people could come and stay overnight and do investigations and all of that. So they put out the word that they were looking for someone who could design the tours, do all the research, put the tours together, write the scripts, get a staff together to actually give the tours, and then sell the tickets too. And so, my mom had just passed away. It was just a really hard time, but I was like, I have to do this. Like nobody else could do this but our company, and I had these awesome people that already loved the prison and had already done research at the prison, and just it was like their dream, right? Dream come true. And so it was great. So yeah, for like 8 weeks, we were in there every single night of the week. And then we would do late night ghost hunts on Fridays and Saturdays. But and they were our team was so great. We raised like $16,000 for the prison, and it was such an incredible experience. But as a part of that, I mean, I just threw my entire life into researching about Joliet Prison. And it's such a fascinating place. Everyone knows about it because it's in the opening shots of the Blues Brothers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is such an incredible place. And, that everybody that was sentenced, to a prison term in Illinois history spent some time at Joliet Prison. And this includes, some of not only just the biggest criminals in Illinois history, including all the gangsters, the serial killer, Gacy, Speck, a lot of the people that were at the St. Valentine's Day Massacre spent time in Joliet Prison. And the grave robbers who tried to rob the body of Abraham Lincoln spent time in Joliet Prison. And even after there were other prisons built in Illinois, everybody was still processed at Joliet. So everyone spent some time at Joliet, at least a month. And it wasn't only that you have these just horrific characters that were spending time there, but it's what happened when they were in there. And it was in doing all this research, discovering all the hundreds of people who had been killed inside the prison. They had either been killed by fellow inmates. There were guards that were shot. Even one of the warden's wives was raped and burned in her bed. There were so many people who hanged themselves, poisoned themselves, slit their own throats. It's impossible to wrap your head around. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of inmates who died of, Spanish flu, tuberculosis, diseases. Yep. And so it's just impossible to try and understand just the darkness surrounding the place. And, I guess I shouldn't have been surprised, but when we started doing the tours, it wasn't just, it was maybe a week or two before people started to email me and call me that had come on the tours or come on the investigations, saying that they were having things happen in their homes when they got back from the tours. Yeah. And it was, all the standard things, right? The shadow figures, the footsteps, the knocking, the disembodied voices, having covers pulled off of them at night, all kinds of poltergeist activity, like with electronics malfunctioning, lights spraying, things like that. And it was one after another, after another, after another, after another. And it was, I've never seen any place like it. And during the tours, every night there were really intense things that happened, including almost every single night when we would walk our groups across the prison yard from building to building. The group would be battered with rocks and stones and broken glass from nowhere. I mean, just from thin air. There were so many things that happened in the gymnasium and the locker room. There were several nights where everyone on the tours smelled this overpowering smell of blood in the locker room of the gymnasium, where we found out later that several people had been stabbed to death, murdered inside there. Oh my gosh, just an incredible place.
It is. And what I found when I went there found interesting was the guards didn't have, if they were in the prison itself beyond the like guard towers, they didn't have any weapons, no guns, no nothing,
Right.
because all guards inside went in without anything, but the only people with guns or anything were the ones in the guard towers.
Right.
So if anything happened, there's not really
Out of
much
luck.
to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We heard, there were so many former guards that came on the tours, and they shared so many stories with us of things that they had experienced when they were working there. And one that a number of them said was that when they would work up in the guard tower, they would actually be locked in, right? And then the door would be unlocked and they'd be let out after their shift. And so many times they would hear someone running up the stairs or walking up the stairs when there's no way for anybody to be in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
See, that's awesome that you got firsthand accounts like that from guards that used to work at the prison and everything. It's kind of like when I live 45 minutes from Mansfield Reformatory.
Yeah.
So I was there all the time, and all the time, like you'd have the one time I remember I was walking, like doing one of the self-guided tours, and it was just me. I was just walking around taking pictures, and there was a guy just sitting in one of the cells, and I like had to do a double take because I was like, are you really there? And I like kind of peeked in and asked him if he was all right. And he was just kind of sitting there with his head down. And I ended up having like an hour-long conversation with this guy. He used to be an inmate at Mansfield. And that was his cell that he was sitting in. So like I sat there and I literally talked to him for about an hour and just listened to like how everyday life was in the prison and everything. And it was really eye-opening.
It is, it was so interesting. And yes, so eye-opening. And these guards, they all told us that they, you wouldn't think, but they said they just feel such an affinity with the place, and they loved working there. They miss working there, and they just feel like in some way that it's like home, but we heard some very chilling stories from them too. There was, one particular one that several different guards told us, independently of each other, that they said like when they would, sometimes when they had a break, they would lie down like there was like a cot in a cell that they would, in a unused area of one of the cell blocks, they would lie down and take a nap. And so often they would have this like the old hag or sleep paralysis experience where they would wake up and they would feel like someone was choking them or pushing down on their chest, and they couldn't move, couldn't breathe. And that was so common for so many of the guards that talked to us. And the other thing was with the prison hospital. The prison hospital was even Gacy, before he was executed, he was brought back to Old Joliet because he had a heart condition, I guess. And he had to have medical treatment because he had to be well enough to be executed. So he had to be in good health. So they brought him to Joliet, and they brought him to the hospital. So he spent, his last days at Old Joliet before he was taken back to be executed.
It's like, all right, you got to be healthy for us to kill you. So.
Yeah, it's really crazy. But we had a lot of not only guards, but also nurses that worked in the hospital. And everyone said that there was something about the hospital that, and this reminded me of when I first went to Gettysburg. And this was exactly the thing that I said about Gettysburg. They said that inside the hospital at Joliet Prison, you could feel like there was like an electrical current. Like everyone could feel it in the building, that it was like the air was like alive.
Oh, I can attest to that because I spent time in that hospital.
That's literally the town of Gettysburg. As soon as you get into Gettysburg, you feel it immediately.
Yeah, it's amazing. But those are the only two places that I've ever, I experienced it at Gettysburg. I did not experience it in the hospital, but so many people. And this was when the prison was operating still.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So another haunted location in Chicago, which I visited when I went on the ghost tour back when I went to Chicago, year event in 2017 was this one.
Oh, yes.
Can you tell us a little about this building?
Yeah, this house is known as the most haunted house in Chicago, and it's Hull House, and it's a museum today that is dedicated to the work of Jane Addams, who was she was one of the most prominent progressivists in the late 19th century. She was she was a reformer in every area of society. From she worked to get kids out of the factories. Excuse me. She worked to get shorter work weeks. Excuse me. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. We all have that little tickle going on.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah. Pardon me. She worked to get the work weeks shortened. She worked on sanitation, garbage pickup, clean water, everything. Just like everything under the sun, right? Prison, reform, everything.
So she was kind of like the modern day Rosie the Riveter kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And she is known for just doing so much reform, and not just in Chicago, but, it caught on all over the United States. So she's considered one of the greatest, women, in American history, basically. And Hull House was really like a first social services agency, like in the country. Huh. And she was from a very small town in Illinois called Freeport, which is up a little bit northwest of Rockford. And so she's from this really, really rural area, but she was drawn to Chicago, especially the West Side, where all of the immigrants were pouring into, just like today, all these immigrants were pouring in from Europe, and most of them could not speak English, didn't have any skills. A lot of them are single women who are running away from terrible situations. A lot of them had children, and she made it her business to teach English to these people, to teach skills, trades skills. She would teach women sewing and teach. There was shop work for men. She would have childcare so that women could go to work and not leave their children at home, where oftentimes maim themselves or even end up dead from being left at home by themselves because there's no childcare. So these were all the kind of social services that she was doing. And Jane Addams was very, forward and modern minded. And she was very frustrated because all of these immigrant women she thought they were very superstitious. She felt that they were bogged down by religious beliefs. And she thought like they needed to like get with the program and be modern and focus on work and having a good life. And so she was really at her wit's end when in 1913, this story is spread around Chicago that a couple had left a baby on the doorstep at Hull House, and they called it the devil baby. And the baby supposedly had horns and pointed ears and fur all over its body and a forked tail. And Jane Addams had no idea where the story came from. But people heard about it, and hundreds, if not thousands of people came from all over the city and lined up at Hull House because they wanted to see this devil baby. And she ended up writing about it in her memoir, 20 Years at Hull House. And she felt that this was some kind of like manifestation of the superstitious beliefs of the women and the families that she cared for on the west side of Chicago. Historians don't know where this story came from. Some historians believe that there was maybe a deformed baby that was born to a couple nearby. And in those days, if you had a deformed child, people thought that it was like a reflection on the parents, that it meant that the parents had sinned or something like that. So it was a big embarrassment. And so a lot of times if people had a deformed child, they would, leave it on the doorstep at an orphanage or something like that. So Jane Addams did have a lot of babies that were left at Hull House. And some believe that she took the baby in quietly and then found a foster home for it or something. But there's a legend that one of the staff members at Hull House murder the baby, believing that it was diabolical.
Oh wow.
And while it was being kept in an upstairs room, and for forever, people have talked about that the bedroom on the right hand upstairs bedroom at Hull House, seeing the little face in the window, the shutters opening and closing, and things like that. That was the last stop on our tour for 19 years. We would always take people off the bus the last time of the night there, because it was guaranteed to send everybody home like terrified. It was really, it's a really creepy place. And, people would say the craziest things about Hull House. We had several people that told us that they had looked in the windows and had seen half human, half animal figures inside,
Oh wow.
like scurrying away when they looked in the window. Many times people would see people in the building. I mean, it's closed at night. It's a museum, and you can see like right through the house to the back, outside the back windows.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's not like anyone can like hide somewhere in there, but people would see people inside. The garden next to the house is a place where many people have claimed that there's a portal, right? And we used to play this up when we started the tours, and tell people you have to be really careful in portal areas because you might take something home with you. And I was the first one to take something home with me. It was only 2 weeks into our tours, and I had taken people to Hull House for the last stop, and went home, went to bed next to my husband. And I woke up at about 4:00 in the morning, and there was a man standing on my chest as I lay in bed.
Oh,
And
wow.
I thought, it's I'm stuck in a dream, whatever. I'll wake up in a second, right? And I waited and waited and waited to wake up, and I realized as the minutes went by, and I watched the clock on the nightstand, and it was 12, 13, 14 minutes that went by. And this man was just standing on me, and I felt pressure, not like a whole person on me, but I felt pressure. And he was just as real as we are. He was wearing an orange t-shirt, blue jeans, kind of like muscular, like a bodybuilder, and like tan, no head. His body just stopped at his neck, and he just stood there. And it was the craziest thing. And I thought, and I was telling myself the whole time, do not tell yourself, Ursula, that this didn't happen, that you were sleeping. You are wide awake. You are wide awake. You are wide awake. And
isn't that funny how we kind of have to talk ourselves into it? Like,
yeah. And,
like
I
we see
slept
so
on
much
the
stuff.
couch. Yeah. I slept on the couch for like 3 days because it was so terrifying. And then, of course, convinced myself that it was a dream. But then as the weeks and the months and the years went by, person after person after person, just like Joliet many years later, person after person would email us or call us after they went home, wherever they were from after the tours, to tell us that they were suddenly having problems in their houses. And it wasn't the same guy that I saw. It was always someone different.
Yeah.
Which is kind of lines up with the portal theory. There's always different things that people see in those areas. And so there's a woman from Dublin who would come to Chicago in the summer with her daughter. They went back to Dublin, and her daughter was seeing this elderly woman with like wild gray hair at the foot of her bed every night. There was a group of girls from Naperville, Illinois, that came for a bachelorette party one weekend. Went back to Naperville. 2 of the girls lived in an apartment together, and they got deathly ill with like a flu. And then they were having all this poltergeist activity in the apartment and seeing shadow figures. One of the girls woke up one night, and there was this dark figure like right in front of her face in her bed. And on and on and on. I mean, I used to keep at first I started to keep like a notes about it, right? When people would tell us, and then it got to be like 2 dozen, 3 dozen, as the years went by. And it was just like, this is insane, So people would always say like, I'd love to come in your tour, but I don't want to bring anything home. And I'd be like, well, I really can't guarantee that that's not going to happen.
That always a kind of funny email to get, kind of like, "Hey, I had a great time on the tour and the place was amazing, but can I bring
But
something back to you?"
Yeah.
Um,
Well, we talked about Gettysburg because the first time I heard about that was actually when I was first doing the research for my first book back in the early 90s. I had gone to meet this couple at out in St. Charles, Illinois. They ran the historical museum there. And I went on and talked to them because they said they had some ghost stories about the museum. And they told me that they had gone to Gettysburg, and the husband is actually like super into ghost stories, right? And they both love history. The husband was super into ghost stories. The wife didn't believe in ghosts at all.
yeah.
But they went to Gettysburg because they could both love it because it's history, and he tons of ghosts for him, right? So they went to Gettysburg, drove out there, and in the summer. And they were walking on the battlefield at night, right? And the husband says, "Can't you just feel all of the spirits here?
Yeah.
It's just so heavy, and you can just feel the sadness." And she said, "It's very moving here, yes, and I can feel the history, but there's no ghosts here." And he said, "No, you can feel how sad they all are." And she said, "Well, if they're so sad, they can come back with us to Illinois. We have plenty of
Oh
room in our
boy.
house."
Never open
Right?
yourself up for that.
No.
Joking around, right?
No.
They finished up their trip, drove back to Illinois, and they each start to see this soldier in the house.
Oh.
And she doesn't say anything because she doesn't believe in ghosts, right? And he doesn't say anything because she doesn't believe in ghosts.
Yeah.
And then one night they're sitting at dinner, and the guy walks right through the dining room, and they look at each other and go, "Did you see that?"
Oh my god.
So she felt horrible because she felt like she had brought this poor soul back to Illinois, and that he should be in Gettysburg, where
Oh
he
boy.
belongs. So they decided to try and take him back. This is a true story. They decided to try and take him back. So, it was the end of the summer. So it was, Labor Day weekend. They pack up the car again, and they said they felt so stupid, but they walked through the house. They're going, "Okay, we're going to Gettysburg now." If anybody wants to go to Gettysburg, we're going now. And they drove to Gettysburg, stayed there just one night, turned around, came back, and never saw him again. And that's a true story. Yeah. It's so weird. I just interviewed someone yesterday. I've been finishing a book about UFOs and the relation, the huge similarities between experiences with UFOs and experiences with ghosts and poltergeists and demonic stuff, right? There's so much stuff that's the same. And I don't know if you guys follow the Skinwalker Ranch saga.
Kinda. I'm not really into it, but
one of the huge things with Skinwalker Ranch is that they talk about, and it's so funny when you look at the UFO stuff, because these ufologists, they encounter all the same things that we've encountered for years as paranormal investigators. And they're in awe that they've never seen it before. They don't know what it is, right? Yeah. And so there's all this talk about the so-called hitchhiker effect, right? Yeah. Like people go to Skinwalker Ranch where UFO sightings are, and they go home and they have stuff happening in the house.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, it's an attachment. Like every ghost hunter knows that,
Oh yeah.
And they're just like, wow, yeah, it's really crazy. Like, we don't know what it is. We're like, I totally know what it is.
I think I have pictures. No, I don't. Okay. One of the stops on your tour when we took it was the theater and the alley behind it.
Yes.
Can you talk about what happened to what happened in that theater and why people think it's haunted?
Yeah, the Biograph Theater is one of the most infamous places in Chicago. This is where John Dillinger saw his last movie right before he was shot to death in the alley that's just a few steps down from the theater. This
Mhm.
happened in the summer of 1934, and people aren't familiar with the story. John Dillinger was, he was the first public enemy number one. He was this notorious bank robber. He was born on an Indiana farm. He was arrested for, I think, stealing some money from a grocery store when he was young. In prison, he recruited people to help him get out.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I think we froze.
He was shot to death in Chicago. I mean, he was all over the place. He famously went up to Mercer, Wisconsin, in the North Woods of Wisconsin, and he was in a shootout with FBI agents. Babyface Nelson was his like right-hand man. So that happened. He shot a cop. Robbed all these banks, and people had been seeing him around the north side of Chicago. And I remember my uncle, he was a kid at the time, and he had a paper route. And he said that they were woken up in the middle of the night to go and deliver the papers. And he remembers going in the truck, the newspaper truck, up and down the streets, yelling out, Dillinger's shot, and throwing the papers. Wow. And it was a really, really hot night. And you can see that it says cool down there. That was one of the only buildings in Chicago that had air conditioning at the time. It was one of the hottest nights on record. And people were sleeping and in their bathing suits, out in the parks and stuff, And he was shot in the alleyway, and his body was taken to the Cook County coroner, and people lined up to see his body because he was like a celebrity, a total celebrity. He was like a modern day Robin Hood, because, it was during the Depression and he was robbing all these banks. So people were like, yeah, rob the banks.
Yeah.
And so it was really, he was a huge celebrity, and he was really attractive too. So all the ladies liked him too. But that alleyway, not until the 1970s, though, started to be a place where people were saying that they were seeing him. They would see this bluish figure of a man, kind of translucent, running down the alley and then falling, and then just dissipating into the ground. And it's interesting, people didn't start seeing, what we think was John Dillinger's ghost until the 1970s. And I've heard some people theorize that the reason people started seeing him then was after The Godfather came out, and people started to get into gangland stuff, started to be interested in that part of history. Before that, nobody was really interested in it. And so it's kind of interesting, when we start to look for things, you start to see things. And I think that might be the case with the Biograph, when people started to see John Dillinger only after they started looking for him.
Yeah. I remember being in that alleyway, and it was so, you could feel the emotions in that alleyway.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, I used to be able to see when I was a kid. There was you could still the old wooden telephone pole was still there, where you could see the bullet holes in the telephone pole. Oh gosh, this play!
I knew this was going to come up tonight.
Yes,
You can't talk about Chicago without talking about this.
No. Yep. You can't talk about Chicago without talking about serial killers. We always say there's
John Wayne. I was actually my next question for you up was John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about Chicago, but it's H.H. Holmes, which are, at this site we're going to talk about in a second. John Wayne Gacy. We used to go on the tours the last few years to a pub or tavern called the L&L Tavern, where Jeffrey Dahmer used to hang out when he came to Chicago. There was at Joliet Prison, Dr. Cream, who was, as notorious at least as H.H. Holmes. He would, he did abortions, illegal abortions on prostitutes, and then he would kill them. He would kill the prostitutes, and he killed, I don't know how many people. And he went to Joliet Prison for a while, but he got out, and then he went to England, and he kept killing. And he was finally incarcerated there and put to death in England. But Yeah, he was a Joliet prison for a while, and
Mhm.
Belle Gunness, she first lived in Chicago and started killing in Chicago when she lived in ran a candy store in Chicago with her husband before they moved to Indiana. So I don't know what it is about Chicago, but even the serial killers that weren't from here, they have some kind of a connection to
Connection somehow.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's why they call Chicago one of the most dangerous cities in America. So, I mean,
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we're keeping up
And
that tradition, that's for sure.
and if you go to the post office where the murder castle is, that's not in the greatest part of town at all. And I
No,
remember what
that
really took
neighborhood,
me.
Englewood, yeah, Englewood is one of the most notorious neighborhoods in like the world, right?
Mhm.
And it's really fascinating because I've talked to many people who grew up in Englewood and live in Englewood, and there's like a folk legend in the area that the area is blighted because of H.H. Holmes.
Mhm.
And I'd never heard anything like that before, but it's crazy. That's where Jennifer Hudson lived when her was it her brother and her mother were shot.
Oh
okay.
wow.
That house is still there. Yeah, and it's crazy. Yeah. But so was the site of the murder castle that H.H. Holmes built, the World's Fair Hotel that he built to take in guests for the World's Fair of 1893. And they call it his, hotel for murder, where he killed, we don't know how many people. And after he was tracked across the country by a detective from the Pinkerton Agency and was finally caught and sentenced to death in Pennsylvania. But
Mhm.
the murder castle mysteriously burnt down after he was arrested, and some
Yes.
say that it was one of his like assistants that burnt it down to get rid of all
I
the
I
evidence.
kind of agree with that theory because like what you were doing and
Yeah,
you don't want any more incriminating things on you.
Yeah.
So you had that right
right.
hand man in your back pocket. It was like, hey, if anything happens
Yeah,
to me, you need to do this.
Yep.
yeah. And he was very clever because even when he was building the place, he would have a crew of workers that
He
would
would
do some
constantly go
work,
through a cruise. Yeah.
Yep.
fire them all. Yeah,
Yep.
hire a new crew. So
So no
nobody
one
knew
knew
exactly
exactly
what the
how it was going to
plans
be.
were. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So it was torn down. And then in the 1930s, a post office was built like right next to where the castle was. And the spot where the hotel actually was is like a vacant lot now.
Yes.
And I got to actually investigate here because back, oh gosh, this was like, I don't know, like maybe 2008 or something like that. Um, I did a show with PBS, The Hauntings of Chicago. I think it's
Mhm.
still on YouTube. People can watch it. But we did a segment about this story. And it was just at this time that I had met Jeff Mudgett, who's the
Mhm.
Yep.
great, great, great grandson of H.H. Holmes. Herman Webster Mudgett was his real name.
Yes.
And I had invited Jeff to come and speak at GhostCon because he had just published a book about
Bloodstains.
Bloodstains.
Bloodstains, great book, finding out about who he was and kind of what he did, after that in his life to deal with it, right? And so we invited him to come and be part of the show. And and like I said, people can watch this on it's called The Hauntings of Chicago. It's on YouTube. And you can watch him. He goes down into the basement of the post office,
Mhm.
which is, kind of the same. It's believed that there's a common wall that was shared, or foundation wall that was shared with the murder castle.
Mhm.
And the workers at the post office said to us, don't go down in the basement. I mean, they said, and everyone that works there is African American, and African American people like hate ghost stories.
Yep.
Like I can tell you that from during our ghost tours for 20 years. I mean, I could count like on two hands, like the number of Black people that came on our tours.
I was gonna say
And
I've
when
been
I
investigating. I've been investigating the paranormal for 27 years, and I've traveled all over the country. I can count on one hand how many African American investigators I've actually investigated with.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's why Ghost Brothers is like so crazy because it's like there aren't any other
Well, I think
African
that
American
was their
ones.
niche, though. That they kind of was like, we're going to throw these people into situations and we're going to see how they react.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, one of my favorite episodes of theirs, because I watched the show here and there, but they did a episode at the House of Wills in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
Which is actually the basis of Daryl Marston's book, The Horrors of House of Wills. But I can't remember which brother it was, but they brought up something about satanic or something. He's like, nope, I'm sitting outside in the van. I'm not going in here. I'm not doing this. Nope.
Yeah, it's a very deep superstition.
Oh, yeah.
That's through the whole culture. And so when we went here, those postal workers were like, you really, please don't go down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
now,
said
do you think that was fear for you, or
place, and you shouldn't go down there?
Now, do you think that was fear for you, or do you think that was fear of you kicking something up and messing with them?
I think they just were. I think it seemed like it was fear for us. Like, you really don't want to go down there. Like, we don't go down there, and you shouldn't go down there either. And they told us stories, and you can see in the video, because we did a recreation of this one story. One of the workers went downstairs to get some boxes or something, and there was like a long hallway where they had some like Formica metal chairs that were lined up like along the wall. She went around the corner to get these boxes, and she heard something in the hallway, and she called out to her coworker. And there was no answer. And it was like she went around this corner for like 20 seconds and came back around, and all of these chairs in the hallway were stacked up on top of each other.
Oh, wow.
And then they said they heard female voices, whistling, humming, female voices.
Well, that would track, because H.H. Holmes only went after females.
Yeah.
Well, mostly.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, for the most part. And so, yeah, it was really wild. But Jeff, he had a neurological issue where he had a history of seizures, but he had not had a seizure in something, I think, like 10 years. He went down in that basement and had a problem. And he also told me that he went down in that basement and he was totally not a believer in anything supernatural. Went down in that basement, and he said when he came up, he was a believer. He had just, it was just life changing.
I think I remember Jeff telling me that story, because I've done a couple events with Jeff, and I've actually got to sit down and talk with him on like the candid level, like sitting in a hotel room. And I think I remember him telling me that story about going down into that basement. And he was like, I don't know what happened. And it was just something that was so eye-opening to me that it went from the skepticism to, okay, this can actually happen.
Yeah.
The other place that H.H. Holmes has himself has been seen, an apparition of H.H. Holmes, is at the Museum of Science and Industry in Jackson Park. That was where the World's Fair was, so the World's Fair that was actually going on, where he was preying on people, to try and bring them back to the place. The Museum of Science and Industry at the time of the fair, that was the Palace of Fine Arts. It was the only building that was built to last, because what was built to house these, priceless art treasures that were brought from around the world for the fair, so that people who couldn't go to Europe could see these beautiful paintings and sculptures. Yeah. So it was turned into our science museum, right, years later. And there's an exhibit there called Yesterday's Main Street, and it's set up like a Victorian street scene with cobblestone streets and storefronts. There's like an ice cream parlor you can go into, gas lights,
Oh, wow.
And I was speaking at an event for kids at Halloween, probably like 20 years ago now. And one of the security guards gave me his number and told me to call him. And I called him, and he said, they told us not to talk to you, but you really need to know about the stuff at the museum, because there's so many things that go on, like U-505 submarine, totally haunted, the Burlington Zephyr train, they hear voices and music on that. But he said they see H.H. Holmes in that Main Street exhibit. In the middle of the night when the museum's empty, they see this man with this, he always wore that, like, it looked like an oversized coat, like it was too big for him. And that bowler hat with the mustache. They just see this guy walking through that scene. And he would have actually been in that building. So it's really wild.
Wow.
See, another place that H.H. Holmes has been seen where his birthplace is, right close to me up here in New Hampshire.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah, H.H. Holmes has always been. You said something earlier about how, John Dillinger was public enemy #1. Everyone was so fascinated with him. This proves to everything that true crime wasn't just a new fad that is just now picked up again. This has happened through everything. I mean, you think of John Dillinger, you think of Bonnie and Clyde, you think of, even the serial killers these days, John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy. It was always something that fascinated America for some morbid reason.
Mhm.
And, it's one of those things where you don't know why it fascinates you. Maybe it's because you're not on the receiving end of it.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those things where it's like a bad train wreck. You can't look away.
Yeah.
Ask her to okay. Bonnie, are they doing any more paranormal stuff at Juliet Prison?
I don't think there's all this scandal going on at Juliet Prison. I don't know what's happening. I know that, and I talked a little bit about this on Facebook. I just stopped talking about it because it was just, that whole thing was just such a nightmare. And I was just like, I felt like I lost a lot of friends over Joliet Prison. And, but it was weird because Jenny told me after I was on the show last month
Candy,
that there had been, that there had been issues with the historical museum that was running the tours. And that was just amazing to me because we had so much trouble with the history museum there, just being so unprofessional with us. And
I think she froze.
She froze up again.
I think, as far as I understand, there's going to be a huge lawsuit coming with the whole Julia thing too.
And see, that's the thing that really sucks, is because you have these people that want to save the place and want to be able to raise money to, help the location stay relevant and stay, in the spotlight, so to say. And when the historical society, the town, the state, whatever it may be, they don't work together, it really
hello.
I can hear you.
Hello.
There you go. There you go.
I don't know.
You froze for a while.
I'm back.
That would have been a perfect shot for one of your books. You were just kind of looking off into the distance, very contemplative,
So I had someone who was doing who had contracted to film a documentary at the prison. So they filmed all this stuff, and then they were supposed to go back again, and they were just ghosted by the history museum.
I think I know who you were talking about.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh, man, yeah, and I think that the guy that was the director of the museum, I had to laugh because I guess he got the Professional of the Year award from the Rotary Club. And so I'm like, professional? What? So
I don't know when you froze.
They're not doing any paranormal stuff anymore.
When you froze, I don't know if you heard me talking or not, but I was just bringing it up to Jenny as you don't see it often to where a historical society or a town or a state doesn't see a way to be able to profit off of a building. And when, we've seen it with Waverly, it happened with Waverly in a completely different circumstance. But it's just, it's terrible when you have a historical society that don't work with what could save them. And they're so stubborn and bullheaded about it. Because I help run 2 locations up here in Massachusetts. And when we first, when Matt Warner, the guy who runs Warner Paranormal Preservation Society, first approached this location about, hey, we could actually help you out and raise money for the building to keep it running. I mean, this building was built in 1899, and they were very skeptical about it. We had to sell ourselves to them. Hey, this is what we can do for you. And I think as of this past year, we raised enough money through our events, our investigations, and everything to literally pay for their heat bill for the year, their, keep the lights on,
big bill.
everything. everything. And,
Yeah.
we don't charge crazy exuberant amounts of money to investigate. Like we, for a team of, I think 8 people, it's like $400 for the night.
That's great.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great location and a great history behind it. It's very, very linked to the Civil War, and it's a part of the Green Army of the Republic and everything. But it just kills me to see that these historical are not stepping up their game and seeing, hey, this is what's trending right now in the world is the paranormal, and if we have the ability to do it, we should do it to get some extra cash flow coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So with like Juliet, that's a building just sitting there doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Oh, the new book that's coming out.
Yes, you have a new book coming out soon. Tell us a little about it.
Yeah, so this book is a collection of all of my stories about Archer Avenue. Archer Avenue, of course, is one of the most haunted roads in the world. It starts on the near south side of Chicago and it runs southwest out of the city all the way down. It actually runs right past Joliet. Joliet's one of the places on it. But Archer Avenue is, it's like the heart of haunted Chicago, right? It's like, there's 5 cemeteries along Archer Avenue, and it includes Resurrection Cemetery, which of course is host to Resurrection Mary, Chicago's most famous ghost. And then all the cemeteries are haunted, and there's just it's just so many classic active Chicago places. So I always wanted to put this book together that just had the Archer Avenue stories because I just love that whole area. So finally I'm doing it. But we used to do, I think the company still does them now. We used to do Archer Avenue tours where we would just take people out for like 4 hours just in that area. Which is also called the Archer Avenue Triangle because there's so many weird things that go on in that area.
Let's hold on. I have it. Let me pull it up. Hold on a second. What is it? You have a podcast. Tell us a little about it and how.
So I've got a blog and a podcast. I don't know if everybody knows this, but in the last maybe 4 years. I really kind of changed the way I did things. I kind of had like a spiritual awakening where I realized that, all these years that I had been investigating, I'm a Catholic, a lifelong Catholic. And I realized that all these years I've been investigating, I hadn't been really taking care of these spirits that I was encountering. And of course, in the Catholic faith, we believe that most people, when they pass away, unless you're like a horrible, horrible person, you go, or a saint, if you're a saint, you go straight to heaven. If you're a horrible, horrible person, you go to hell. But most people, we believe, go to a place of purification before heaven called purgatory. And some people believe, the Catholic Church doesn't have doesn't say a lot about purgatory, like where it is or, and so a lot of people believe that. And I wonder about this sometimes, think that purgatory is here. And maybe we have to stay here for a while and observe, the effects of the things that we did or, things like that. Some priests tell us or exorcists tell us that sometimes that God allows people to remain where they sinned or where they died while they go through the purification. Sometimes God allows people to spend their purgatory like in church for comfort. So that's why you have a lot of haunted churches. So, so there's a lot of interesting possibilities, right? But I thought, gosh, and we're supposed to pray for these people because the prayers help them get out of purgatory and get to heaven. So it helps their purification. And I realized, as a Catholic, all these years, I'd been so fascinated by all of these encounters, but I hadn't really been praying for these spirits. So I started the Pray for Ghosts project. And each month I tried to write about, one of the places that I've been all these years and really go in depth about the location and about the people, and then invite people to pray with me for them. So that's one of the things I've been doing. And then This Present Darkness podcast, which is also on YouTube. and it's pretty irregular. I try to do it every week, but I haven't. I've been writing so much lately, so it's been kind of sketchy. I've got a new episode tomorrow. That is all about kind of the reality of the struggle between good and evil and the reality of the supernatural. So we talk a lot about demonic things, forces, and cases of infestations and possessions. We're talking a lot about the UFO movement and the very dark aspects of that. Tomorrow I've got ufologist Dawn that does a lot of work with abduction cases in ufology. So so those are my two like big projects that I've been doing the last couple of years.
Besides writing all the books and
besides
the books,
yeah. And then I'm doing freelance writing too, like for like a job, like to try and make money, like buy food. And so I've been writing for a travel app. So I've been writing tours. I've been writing tours, not ghost tours, although I did do a Savannah ghost tour last month, but I'm just writing tour scripts for apps. So like people, when they travel, they can do like self-guided walking tours and driving tours. So that's been really fun because I've gotten to write a lot of different tours. Yeah.
So besides the podcast and the blog, where can people find you?
Yeah, so they can find information about those things and my books and events that I'm doing, classes that I'm teaching that are coming up, and they can sign up for my newsletter to get notified of stuff. And that's all at the same place, worldofthesupernatural.com is the website.
I'll type it into the chat here.
Great, thank you.
And that's all today, supernatural. If anyone's interested, it's in the chat. Check it out. It's a great website. And she also has the Patreon too.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And that's how you can get first dibs at the new book.
Yes, absolutely.
That's why I joined, because I was like, first dibs at new book. Yes.
And that book is going to come out in probably about 2 weeks. And so if you sign up on Patreon, $5 level, you get a free ebook of it. And if you sign up for $15, you'll get a hard copy of the book autographed. So yeah.
Oh wow.
Which you did, Jenny. Thank you.
Yes, I did. I was like, I need that book. So I'm
so excited about it. I'm so excited about it. Yeah.
And
then I also have besides the UFO book that'll probably be out next month, I also wrote a memoir actually about kind of what I just talked about, kind of realizations and things that I had over the last couple of years. And I talked all about like kind of my whole haunted life, like going back to when I was a kid and how I got into investigating and a lot of the hairy things that happened, over the years as an investigator. So that'll be out too. So I'm just like writing like crazy lately.
I'm sure I'll read it at some point because Jenny sends me books all the time. So
that's awesome.
Hey, Russ, read this book. Russ, read this book.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, read this, read that.
I love it.
I'm like, okay, all right, I'll dive into it.
It keeps them out of trouble. Okay.
It does.
We need
to
stay out of trouble.
It does. All right, so Ursula, I normally ask 2 questions at the end of every show. Tonight I'm only going to ask one. So if you, I'm going to ask 2 because I'm going to switch it up a little bit because I have 3 questions I kind of rotate in and out. The first question is, what would your last meal be?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I don't know. I might go the like no. Are you gonna go
Chicago meal, deep dash?
Like just dish? Like no, like nothing. Like just like water, maybe. Like maybe I would try to be like very like, spiritual and have just like water, but probably not. I think I'd probably have, I'm very like simple. One of my favorite meals is spaghetti. Just spaghetti, like our mom's spaghetti, that we had as kids. I love that. Or steak tacos. Second favorite.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that.
Okay, Jenny, I'll leave this one up to you. Which one should I ask? Location or people?
Let's do people for her.
Do people? All right. So if you had to assemble a team of 5 investigators, plus yourself, so 6 total.
Okay.
You could pick 5 people, living or dead, fact or fictional.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Okay.
Who would your team be?
And
I will give you this disclaimer.
Probably all bad.
I will give you this disclaimer. People like Ed and Lorraine Warren, they're bulked into one choice. If you chose Scooby-Doo, they're all bulked into one choice.
We can have characters from Scooby-Doo.
You can have anybody you want. Like I said, fact or fictional.
Definitely want Velma. Definitely. Sherlock Holmes for sure.
That was actually one of my answers that I love to say.
That's awesome. Okay. I would probably go with oh my gosh. I would go with my parapsychology mentor, Stephen Browdy, who I learned a ton from. He was he's a parapsychologist and a philosopher who I learned. Well, he investigated Amityville and like everywhere under the sun. So I would definitely take him. I'd probably go with Hans Holzer. And oh my gosh, who else?
She's like, I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Do I have one more? Is it 5 with me?
Yes, you have one more.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I know I'm forgetting like someone.
Hey, I said it was a question. I didn't say it was an easy question.
This is really, 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 really hard. How about Nancy Drew?
That's the first one.
I've actually had somebody say the Hardy Boys before.
Oh, Hardy Boys. Does that count as one?
That counts as one.
Nancy or the boys. I don't know. I'll go with Nancy. I'll go with Nancy for girl power.
Girl power. Yes. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. We will definitely have to get you on to do more talkings of Chicago haunts because we only touched on a couple.
Well, it's not even just the Chicago haunts. I mean, you're a.
There's a ghost in your.
I always make fun of her because I told her, or actually earlier before we started the interview, that her background looks like one of those like confidential interviews where your face is blurred over and everything.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Oh just get the voice changer; it will be good.
So beautiful. What's your name?
River. What's your middle name?
I don't know.
Well,
River. That's beautiful.
Okay, go play, please. Go get ready for bed. One of these two.
So cute.
Yes. Nakey baby.
Nakey baby. She doesn't wear clothes half the time. So yeah.
No, but like I was saying, not even just the Chicago haunts, but you are a untapped source of so much knowledge of different topics that we could sit here and talk for 2-3 hours about.
Oh my gosh, you just talk all night long.
Everything.
All night long.
So I mean, we're definitely gonna have you come back on for not just Chicago haunts, but different, levels of now you're breaking into the UFOlogy stuff, and you're gonna have that book released next month, and it's definitely something that it piques a lot of interest now because you can't spit in the wind without hearing somebody say, I saw a UFO.
Yeah. I tell people too, if you are not interested in it, you got to make yourself interested in it because it is a huge deal and it's going to affect everybody really soon. You got to learn about what's going on. Because it's really weird.
Something's coming.
Yeah.
We don't know what, but something's coming very soon.
Mm-hmm.
So
we'll see.
Yeah. Thank you again. And
thank you so much for having me. It's been great talking to you both.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. And when I come down to Chicago, I'll have to send you an email and be like, hey, let's meet up.
And we'll hang out.
Yeah, we'll hang
Jenny,
out
just make sure the next time you go to Chicago, you get her one of those shirts.
What?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Don't even ask me where I got it from. I don't even know.
They love it.
Don't you have a cricket? Can't you make one?
I can go get one made up, probably. Yeah, yeah, it's like really nice because it has
a nice hood to it.
So I can,
nice.
as I can't even get it over my head.
Yeah, don't hang yourself trying to get the okay.
No, you don't see me.
And that's normally how you find Jenny in a car.
Stop. Stop. Oh my goodness. But
All right, Ursula, thank you
again.
so much for coming
Have
on.
a
We really
great night, you
appreciate your
guys.
time.
Yeah. Have a great
Have a good
night.
night.
Thanks for having me. You too. Bye.
Bye. Awesome. She's amazing. I love her. She is. Something just fell by my feet.
Now I'm gonna have to go to Chicago.
Hey, come out. I'll meet you in Chicago. It's like
All right,
only a 7-hour
I'll
drive.
fly into O'Hare. You and Bond pick me up, and
I could fly. We could fly into Chicago too, because I'd rather fly into Chicago than drive into Chicago.
all right. Well, we'll just fly into Chicago. We'll all meet up. We'll rent a car, and we'll just go on a little. We'll stay at the Congress Hotel.
I heard those beds suck. So no, I will not be staying at the Congress Hotel. That's what I got told.
Oh, you're poor back.
I was told because I wanted to go down to Chicago and meet up with a couple of friends. So like, we're not staying at Congress because the beds suck. For the price that you pay for a night there, the beds suck. So I'm like, fine, find me another haunted location to sleep at.
Right? Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm not saying anything. So, but no. So we got some great things coming up. So who's our guest for next week?
We have Jim Werner of Penhurst Asylum on. So we'll be talking about Penhurst, the history, the paranormal, and
also Penhurst Paracon.
Yes, the big Paracon that comes up in a couple of months.
There are 3 huge events that go on that are very mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Penhurst Paracon, New Jersey Para-Unity, and Gettysburg.
And Ursula, so 4 big ones.
Well, Parapsycon, yeah. Okay, I'll get Parapsycon.
Yeah, because that gets a lot of people there too.
I mean, if you want to, you can always toss in Scarefest in there as well. But
yeah, so
that's more of a horror convention than it is a paranormal.
Yeah, really it is. But yeah, I would say those are the
All right, so Jenny, what are you going to say about our sponsors? We kind of slacked.
Yeah, we kind of slacked. I put the things up throughout the show.
I know, but River Rose, go put on clothes. That rhymed. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it.
Uncle Wes just told you, dude. Good job. We have Expedition Entity. I'm not sure if he's going to be changing it soon because Expedition Entity is going to be changing because of some
Larry Eisler III over there, great guy.
Yep. We have Warner Paranormal Society, and of course, Get Haunted as our home base.
Good job.
There
is that just a coat?
You listen up. No, it's a fuzzy sweatshirt.
Okay.
It's a fuzzy sweatshirt. Are you going to see
like
Uncle Wes in a couple of months?
Just like any radio show, you never know.
No, he will not be here for your birthday.
I will not be there for your birthday. Oh yeah, don't forget. I'm surprised.
Yep.
I'm surprised I did not hear Bonnie yell across the room.
I know, right? I almost forgot because I had a little interruption here. Little almost 6-year-old here.
No, but great things are happening. We have some great guests coming up.
Yeah. So in March, let's see. In March we will have 3. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shows. We have Jim next weekend, and then we have Richie B from
Banter with Richie from Get Haunted.
Yep. And then that Wednesday we have Brian Kano, who was on Haunted
Collector.
My God, the child is going to drive me nuts. And then we have Kimberly Murphy. And then the 23rd, we have Ray from 28 Days Haunted. That is a Saturday night show. And then we have Becky and Galatine on the 24th.
Hey, Denise and Ernie.
Hi, Mom.
Oh, Trouble is here now. They missed the show.
Hey, I want some pizza. Send me some up to Massachusetts, all right?
Send them to me here in Minnesota. Denise, come on. And Chuck, Denise, and Ornell, they just joined Get Haunted on Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. You'll learn more about Fort Duffield and what the Pac-Mans are up to at all times. If you
Besides
don't know
eating ghosts and cherries.
If you don't know who these 2 people are, go find their group, Pac-Man Paranormal. You'll fall in love with them. They're crazy, but we love them. Great people, and they own one of the most haunted house in Kentucky.
River, give us 2 minutes, okay?
They own one of the most haunted haunted houses in Kentucky. The Ditto House, I believe this is called.
Is the Ditto House, yeah.
And they're opening it up. If you go to the page, they're opening it up to 5 teens starting next month to spend the night in their house, which I might have to look at dates.
I'm closer to Kentucky than you are.
It's about 10-hour drive for me. What are you talking about? We can do that.
Yeah, it's a 3-hour flight for me.
It's probably like an hour and a half flight for me.
Keep talking.
But Russ
Ernie and I would go Sasquatching, and then Denise and you could sit around and drink wine.
I don't drink wine. Ew, gross. Give me Long Island iced teas, okay?
Now, we'll be seeing Denise and Ernie in July. At the Bash.
Yes. And then Russ.
Jenny, and I'm sorry to say this, I am not getting a table again this year at the Bash. So UTP is going to be on your table for Enchanted Awakenings. So I don't know. I like to go and just enjoy. I'm actually doing, this is funny, I'm actually doing my first ever event as just a guest. Not speaking, not having a table, not having anything like that. And it's going to be in September of this year in my home state of Ohio. A place that is very, 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 very near to my heart. Madison Seminary for MadCon.
Super excited. I will be there. Russ and I were talking about ideas for the show about happening at MadCon. So we're super excited. I can pull some strings probably and make it happen. But MadCon is, I can't remember, the 18th?
September 18th.
September 18th at Madison Seminary. If you don't have it in your books, put it in your calendar. Project Fear will be there. Lauren Hilkelson of the Crystal REM Pods.
Kalani Ghost Hunter.
Kalani, which I'm super excited to meet him finally. And then, of course, Adam and Addie and Shelly and all those people from the team will be there, including Becca, who is part of Haunted Resident Undead. So
a bunch of vendors are going to be out there, and it's for a great cause. It's for cystic fibrosis.
Yeah, like my mom said, I think we're just going to go as attendees since it's so cheap.
Yeah, I mean, $20 to get in at the door. You can't buy tickets in advance. It's $20 at the door, and there's self-guided tours. River,
go 2 more minutes.
2 more minutes, honey. But why does she listen to me more across the computer screen than she does you?
Because she doesn't get to see you very often in person.
Well, that would also make her want to stay on screen, but never mind. But no, I mean, it's a great cause, and this will be my first time back to Madison in 13, 14 years. So that'll be very interesting to see.
Fun weekend.
Because Madison and I definitely have some history.
Yep.
But other than that, where are you going to be as far as events? Like, do you have a weekend free?
Let me pull up my calendar. I think next weekend I'm free.
Oh, good Lord. Anybody listening to the show still, I know there's still 4 viewers out there, but Jenny and I trying to nail down a show for a Sunday night is nearly impossible because she's gonna I'm gonna be on the road. I'm gonna be coming back from this place. I'm gonna be coming back from that place. Maybe I'll be home. Okay, cool.
March 8th and 9th is Photograph with Pooches, which is a great cause, great event. Tim Mallory raises money for different animal shelters. All goes back to his dog that he had, Maury. Super sweet dog, great cause. Check it out. Barry Fitzgerald will be there.
Your mom even said maybe you can corner Barry and get him to do an interview.
probably.
Did she forget we've already had him on?
We have to get him back on.
Yeah.
But you know how he's in Ireland? It's like the time difference is crazy.
Yeah, 6 hours.
Barry Fitzgerald will be there. I want to say Dustin will be there, Richard a step. There,
And
so
you just
check
froze.
that out. No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
Oh, okay. So that's March 8th and 9th in Ann Arbor. Only about 20 minutes from Eloise Asylum, which I'll be checking out hopefully. And then the next event I will be checking out McIntyre Villa in April. I'm super excited. And then Penhurst and Madison in May. And then it gets to the crazy month of June and July, where I'll be doing Missouri State Pen with Get Haunted on June 1st. So if you are free that weekend and close to Missouri State Pen, check out gethaunted.com and get your tickets for that event. It'll be with Nesper as well. So you'll see some of the haunted items. And then I have Ashmore Estates, Indiana State Sanitarium, and Haunted Rock Island at the end of the month. And then it's Gettysburg, my big trip. My big trip.
River keeps running back and forth.
I think. Oh, you're going to scare her? Hey, River, come here.
Uh-oh.
You better run away then, River. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm dying.
And by the way, welcome for the nightmares tonight for River. But
yeah, thank you, Uncle
I
Bob.
don't like Daddy's face.
Scary things. You don't like scary things? Well,
you're in the wrong family.
I was gonna say you should be liking Uncle Bob's then, because he's scary himself.
What's that say?
His shirt?
Yeah.
Ohio State. But thank you all for listening, and keep an eye on our Facebook page for upcoming events and other fun announcements to come.
And don't forget, tomorrow I have my show Compass of Curiosities on Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Tomorrow, my guest is Adam the Glider Bonnet. Great guy. Can't wait to see him. You can catch it here. You can catch it.
Oh my god, this child.
Good luck. I mean, it's 9 o'clock out there already. Good luck getting her to bed.
No. Yeah.
But you guys are great. Like I said, always say every episode, we couldn't do this without you guys. And thank you for listening. And once again, another great show. So we'll see you next week.
Next week. See you next week.